Lawrence, Kansas, and its idyllic downtown for visitors and residents alike. Fine dining, seasonal events, arts, history, music, and paranormal attractions. Wait, what? Yes, that last piece is actually a branch of the tourism tree. The tourism arm of Lawrence confirms. The supernatural even gets its own section on the city's tourism website. And like so many great ghost stories across the Free State, tonight's destination originates with the Civil War era. In fact, the Civil War's inception.
You don't expect Civil War history in Kansas to really go hand in hand, but the thing about Lawrence is it was founded purely for political reasons in the 1850s, and it was settled to be the resistance in the state of Kansas to the expansion of slavery. So that kind of fiery history full of conflict really does lend itself to create some really good ghost stories. And the Eldridge Hotel, which is in our downtown, was actually burned down not once but twice by pro-slavery factions.
Okay, so my name is Brian Lenzo, and I'm a front desk agent, and I've been with the Eldridge for 2 years now. Thanks for the front desk at the Eldridge. Can I help you? So on my many shifts, I've met a lot of people who are here just for the paranormal, or at least to experience the paranormal. I've had people who have blogs about ghosts, to couples that just wanted to see if they can communicate with the other side, and they'd bring like Ouija boards and high-tech equipment to see if they can detect something.
This is a static detector. This is called a dark matter meter, electronic voice phenomenon, and this here is called a REM pod. I'm gonna turn it on and slow it down.
Even during COVID-19, a global pandemic, people choose to quarantine in allegedly haunted rooms. But what exactly is the hotel's policy with these tourism guests? And what if the haunted amenities were not exactly what the hotel guest was booking for?
So as far as the management philosophy is, we don't try to scare anybody, but we do try to foster that curiosity. So we really just try to cater to both tastes and interests. Okay. But as far as like when they come in and they don't know anything about the history, we do tell them about the history of the hotel.
So without any history, there would not be hauntings, because hauntings are residue, if you will, of spirits and things that have happened in the land. So in addition to people being haunted and houses being haunted, land can be haunted as well. And here in Lawrence, you've got ties to the Civil War and Quantrell's raid in 1863, which killed about 200 men and boys. So that plays a very pivotal role in the history of Lawrence, as well as a lot of the ghost tours here.
A lot of times the elevator, when no one gets in it or comes out of it, it will automatically close its doors and go straight to the 5th floor, which is our floor that is supposed to be watched over by Colonel Eldridge. And then it will make its way back down with no one in it. And it does this periodically, I would say at least twice a day.
So we are at the Eldridge Hotel, and this hotel has been around for more than 150 years. It started as the Free State Hotel because Kansas was a free state and Missouri, our next door neighbor, was a slave state. And the feelings were very high on both sides, slavery and non-slavery, free state, feeling that their point of view was correct. So over the years, this became the Eldridge Hotel when Colonel Schuyler Eldridge purchased it, and he reestablished it and made the vow that if the hotel was destroyed or damaged in any way, that he would not only rebuild it, but he would build it a story taller.
On a honestly, I really think that there's something out there, and I think that there's some sort of remnant energy in places. I don't know if I'd call it a ghost, but I would say it's a little bit of history that's still living. So I actually knew a lot of Lawrence's history before I moved to Lawrence in 2003. I actually have a degree in history, so Lawrence's Civil War history was something I was very aware of when I moved here. So we developed the Supernatural page on Unmistakably Lawrence. It was actually something that we did by looking through the website traffic, and people who had an interest in the show Supernatural were wanting that kind of content. So, basically our job is storytelling as a tourism bureau, and really anything that adds another layer to the story of Lawrence is something we want to promote. So we decided to elevate that rich supernatural history with historical hauntings and the current interest because of that show.
Again, with Kansas and Missouri being right next door, there were a lot of people who had families on both sides. So if they lived in Kansas, they may have family on the Missouri side. And they usually had opposite viewpoints when it came to slavery and whether it was all right, acceptable to own slaves or not. So I think that the whole Civil War has a lot of deep history here in Kansas. And a lot of people believe that the Civil War actually started here in Kansas. And the history is so deep, and the skirmishes back and forth. William Quantrell came to Lawrence in 1863. Well, he actually came to Lawrence in 1859, and he lived under an assumed name. And what we would consider now, he was then a terrorist, a modern day terrorist. He lived in the city, he learned who was who, he learned where the armory was, who had keys to the armory, and he was a school teacher here. And then he did his reconnaissance while he was here, and then in 1863, he brought hundreds of men from the Missouri side, and they came here and raided and killed as many men and boys as they could find. And they attempted to burn down the city, and they burned down a big chunk of it.
So Colonel Eldridge was the guy who, he said he would rebuild this building every time it was burnt down or torn down. And in 1856, it was burned down the first time. He brought it back up. And 1863, with the Quantrell's raids, he did that the same. And so that's our little story that is linked to Lawrence and a little bit of defiance. It's a symbol of freedom.
So the hotel was first built, and it was actually burned down the very first day that it was completed by Sheriff Sam Jones. And he burned it to the ground, and it was rebuilt and continued to not only be rebuilt, but they actually made it larger every time it was added on to.
So they made models of the hotel in the, say, different incarnations, if you will. So they have the original hotel that was burned down in 1856, and then they have it after it was rebuilt, and then they have it with the additions, and they have it, I believe, through 1925. So if I remember correctly, there's 4 models down here. There's 3 or 4. So this is 1858. After the original hotel was burned down, this is what was built, and this is the foundation of what you see today.
So if somebody has a bad experience on the 5th floor, first thing we do is we offer to move them. And usually there's no questions asked. We just make sure that they're comfortable, and then we proceed from there. So the rumor is, or like the myth is, a piece of, I believe, the 1860s building remains on the 5th floor, and it serves as a bridge to the other world. And so, that's the reason why people experience so many phenomena in that room.
Coming up on Free State Horror Stories, individual stories from guests of the 5th floor. But first, a word from today's episode sponsor.
In my great-grandparents' time, a man's word was all you needed to trust that the job would be done and done correctly. Well, some things never change. That's what makes Revolution Automotive stand apart from other repair shops. Trust and fair pricing. When you contact us, you're contacting Dave, and only Dave. No middlemen to confuse or make excuses over your repair.
We do everything here. One of my specialties is drivability and electrical repairs. You know, if my check engine light's on, car's not running right, not shifting right, those are all the things that we can do. You know, if something in the interior isn't working, your windows, your door locks, your heating and air system, your periodic maintenance, your timing belts, tune-ups, all that stuff. I don't have preset fees for any of that stuff, but I'll get you an estimate prior to doing the work so you know ahead of time what the cost is going to be, and we stick to that.
Give Dave a call, 785-840-8157. Revolution Automotive.
So with all the activity on the expanded floor, the obvious question presents itself. Are these the good spirits or the bad? Or are those forces still battling each other? Either way, one thing is clear. The unassuming guest is quite often a witness to the next collision. Have you ever stayed at the Eldridge?
No, but my mother-in-law did, and she was in the room next to 506, and she said it was the worst night's sleep of her life, that she could hear knocking on the walls all night. And then she inquired at the front desk, and the room was empty next to her. So she didn't know there was a ghost, and she came and talked about it, and I was like, oh, what room were you in? So she did. Yeah. She had no idea that there was a ghost room next to her, and she had a night of hearing things going on in the next room.
I think that's a common theme. Out of most of the stories that we've had, people weren't really seeking out the ghost.
So also on the 5th floor at the Eldridge, we have lots of other ghost stories. Including a story about a couple that were here from out of town, and they were traveling for a convention. So a husband and wife were staying in a room, and the husband got up in the middle of the morning. He went to go do his convention stuff, and the wife was just enjoying a little peace and quiet laying in bed. And her husband had actually brought his golf clubs, and they were sitting against the wall. And she said that the golf clubs came up off the ground, slammed down, and then slid down the wall. Now, if you just had a set of golf clubs sitting up against a wall and it fell over, you should never assume, oh, it's a ghost. You should always think that there's a logical explanation in a hotel. You cannot come up with a logical explanation for a set of golf clubs to come completely up off the floor and slam down. And so when he came back from his day of convention business, they were in a different room. In particular, it's the entire floor. So if you stay anywhere on the 5th floor, don't be surprised if you get a little surprise during the night. We have lots of great stories that come from room 506 and everywhere on the 5th floor. When we give our ghost tours, I stand in front of the fireplace, and it tends to draw a crowd of people when you have like 40 people standing around you, and so people tend to stop and see what's going on. And we've had a lot of people that have shared their stories. Some people knew that it was haunted, the 5th floor, and some people did not. And you know how narrow the aisles are up there. The hallways are really, really narrow. It's not like going to the Hilton where, it's like 15 feet across. They're pretty narrow hallways. And we talked to a lady that was part of the cleaning crew, and she was there, and she had her cart out in the hallway. And when she went in to clean a room, she came out and her cart was moved. So she figured somebody walked by and moved it. And she went into the next room to clean, and she said when she opened the door, she described what she saw of 4 women in period costumes or dresses. So they had the big hoop skirt, they had the bonnets, the long sleeves, and they were sitting at a table and they were playing cards. And so she couldn't believe what she saw, so she kind of closed her eyes and shook her head, and when she opened her eyes, they were gone. So that's one of the stories. We get a lot of the cleaning crews say that they've heard their names called up on the 5th floor. They hear footsteps, but inside some of the rooms, there's a lot of creepy things going on. Some of the early stories that we received included like when you look at a mirror and you breathe on it, it kind of fogs up. That was happening in room 506. So the mirror is, probably, I don't know, maybe 8 or 10 feet long, and they would just see that, a fogged up area just in the mirror. And there was no reason for it. It's right next to the bathroom, but no one was in the bathroom to where the steam could have come out. It was just a small area.
Well, after all those stories, we don't know if you want more, but if you do, on the next video, we join paranormal investigator Rob Garcia for a late night visit inside room 506.
I've only investigated Lawrence a few places now, Sigma Nu being one of them. This downtown part of Lawrence here along Massachusetts, though, since this was destroyed in the Civil War, pre-Civil War and during the Civil War, so this whole section's been burned down twice. The Confederate guerrillas killed about 150 people out here on the street right outside this hotel. In a place like this, it's going to have hopefully some lingering kind of paranormal activity from that, whether that be just energy or, I don't know if there's spirits that linger here from that time. It's 170 years ago now, so, or along those, not quite 170, but along those lines. So it's, if there's spirits here, this would be kind of a place where you'd hope they'd show up, but not just from the spirits of the Civil War. Hotels are notoriously places where people come and die. Outside of hospitals, it's the second most frequent place people die, is hotels. A lot of people don't realize that.
He will dispatch his gear to find what we can record. And we're also going to take a break from the 5th floor and head underground, but we will find that also has a haunted history buried below. Thank you for watching Free State Horror Stories.